Have you ever noticed the reoccurring presence of the number 12 in religious and mythological traditions? Consider the 12 signs of the zodiac, the 12 apostles of Christ, and the 12 tribes of Israel. Or think about the 12 altars dedicated to the Greek gods, the 12 knights of the Round Table, and the 12 fruits on the Tree of Life in Revelation. The examples are truly endless. But what does it all mean? Why does this number 12 keep showing up? Through my research, I discovered that these patterns often link back to the concepts of astrotheism, which interpret the Bible and other religious texts as allegories for celestial events and cosmic cycles. At a basic level, consider the 12 constellations in the zodiac, which cycle around the sun in both an annual sequence as well as a grand processional cycle. An astrotheistic interpretation of the Bible might suggest that Jesus, as the Son of God, represents the literal sun itself, while his 12 disciples symbolize the 12 zodiac signs. Intrigued by this idea, I decided to explore further. What I found were numerous other instances of astrological symbolism in the Bible. Take, for instance, Exodus 32, where Moses becomes furious at the Israelites for worshiping the golden calf, a symbol of the previous processional age of Taurus. Moses then uses a ram's horn to call the Israelites to Mount Sinai to receive the 10 Commandments. The ram's horn, of course, symbolizes the new processional age of Aries. Moses is essentially saying, the age of the bull is now over. It is time to embrace the ram. When Jesus arrived, it was at the dawn of the processional age of Pisces, which is why his story is so closely associated with fish symbolism. For instance, in the Gospels of Matthew and Mark, Jesus performs the miracle of taking 2 fish and multiplying them. The 2 fish is a clear nod to the zodiac sign of Pisces. Also, in John 21, Jesus helps his disciples catch 153 fish exactly, which is often interpreted as a nod to a mathematical concept known as Vesica Pisces. Furthermore, in Mark 14 and Luke 22, Jesus instructs his disciples to find a man carrying a jar of water and wait for him there. The man carrying the jar of water is a clear symbol of Aquarius, the water bearer. This can be interpreted as Christ signaling that he will meet us at Aquarius. The processional age of Aquarius is estimated to begin around 2160 AD. Let me know in the comments section, do you believe that Christ will return in some way, shape, or form at that time? In contemporary Christianity, just discussing these ideas can result in being labeled a heretic or a blasphemer, but I believe that there's real substance to them. There's a reason why Old World architecture frequently incorporates zodiac symbols into its stonework and statues. There's also a reason why astrology in general has been distorted in modern culture, steering away from the true principles of the processional cycle and more towards the fraudulent tropical zodiac. Critically, astrology was targeted heavily by the Catholic Inquisitions. It wasn't just the scientific revolution that did away with astrology as we have been made to believe. Its study was purposely suppressed through force. For more on that topic and a detailed explanation of the processional cycle in general, check out my previous video on this topic, link in the pinned comment below. As fascinating as these ideas are surrounding astrotheism, they often lead to questions that delve deeper into Christian eschatology, particularly the concept of the millennial reign of Christ and Satan's little season. The millennial reign, often referred to as the Millennium, is a prophesized 1,000-year period during which Christ is said to reign on earth, either physically or spiritually, bringing peace and justice to all. This period is followed by a brief but tumultuous era known as Satan's little season, where Satan is released to deceive the nations one final time before the ultimate judgment day. The concept of the millennial reign is primarily derived from Revelation 20, 1-6, where John the Apostle describes a vision in which Satan is bound for 1,000 years, allowing Christ to reign with his saints on earth. The exact nature and timing of this reign, however, have been the subject of considerable debate among theologians, leading to several distinct interpretations. Amillennialism, for example, interprets the 1,000 years mentioned in Revelation as a symbolic period rather than a literal future event. According to Louis Berkhoff in his work Systematic Theology, amillennialists believe that the millennium is the present reign of the souls of deceased believers with Christ in heaven, and that this reign will continue until Christ's second coming, at which point the final judgment will occur. In this view, the millennium represents the current church age, a time in which Christ reigns spiritually in the hearts of believers through the church. Satan is considered bound in the sense that his power to deceive the nations is restricted by the spread of the gospel. On the other hand, postmillennialism posits that the millennium is a future golden age that will be ushered in by the successful spread of the gospel. Postmillennialists believe that as more people convert to Christianity, society will gradually improve, leading to a period of peace, prosperity, and righteousness on earth. In The Puritan Hope, Ian Murray explains that postmillennialism holds that the kingdom of God is now being extended into the world through the preaching of the gospel, and that the world will eventually be entirely Christianized. Christ will return at the end of the Golden Age, not to establish his reign, but to conclude it, bringing about the final judgment and the creation of a new heaven and a new earth. Premillennialism, in contrast, offers a more literal interpretation of the millennial reign. Premillennialists believe that Christ will return to earth before the millennium begins, establishing a literal 1,000-year kingdom where he will physically reign over the nations. According to John F. Walvoord in The Millennial Kingdom, the premillennial view holds that the second coming of Christ will occur prior to the millennium, which will be followed by the final judgment and the eternal state. This reign will be marked by unprecedented peace and justice, fulfilling the prophecies of a messianic kingdom found in the Old Testament. The millennium will be a time of great blessing for those who have remained faithful to Christ, but it will also be a time of testing for those who have not. At the end of the 1,000 years, Satan will be released for a brief period, i.e. the little season, to deceive the nations once more, leading to a final rebellion against Christ. This rebellion will be swiftly crushed, and the final judgment will follow, leading to the eternal state. The idea of Satan's little season, as described in Revelation 20, is perhaps one of the most enigmatic aspects of Christian eschatology. According to the text, after the 1,000 years are completed, Satan will be released from his prison to once again deceive the nations. He will gather them for a final battle against the saints and the beloved city, often interpreted as Jerusalem. This period of renewed deception raises many questions. Why would Satan be released after such a long period of peace? What is the purpose of this final test? And how does it fit into the larger narrative of God's plan for humanity? Various interpretations have been proposed to answer these questions. Some see Satan's little season as a final opportunity for humanity to choose between good and evil, demonstrating that even after 1,000 years of perfect rule under Christ, the human heart remains susceptible to deception. Others view it as a necessary part of God's plan to bring about the ultimate defeat of evil, allowing Satan to reveal his true nature before his final judgment. As G.K. Beale notes in his documentary, The Book of Revelation, the release of Satan is necessary to show that his defeat and the judgment of the wicked are fully justified. In the broader context of Christian eschatology, some scholars have also explored the Preterist perspective, which offers a different approach to interpreting Revelation. Preterists believe that most, if not all, of the prophecies in Revelation were fulfilled in the first century already, particularly the destruction of Jerusalem in AD 70. From a preterist perspective, the millennial reign could be seen as a symbolic period representing the spread of Christianity in the early church era, rather than a future event. Preterists like R.C. Sproul argue that the events surrounding the destruction of Jerusalem in AD 70 represent the end of the Old Covenant and the establishment of a new covenant, symbolized by the Millennium. Amidst these various interpretations, a particularly intriguing preterist theory has recently swept the Tartaria community specifically. This theory suggests that the so-called Dark Ages may have actually been the millennial reign of Christ. This idea challenges the traditional timeline of history, proposing that the period often characterized as a time of cultural and intellectual decline was actually, in fact, the golden age of Christ's reign on earth. Proponents of this theory point towards the remarkable achievements in architecture, art, and learning that occurred during the so-called medieval period, suggesting that these could be evidence of a divine influence. The great cathedrals, for example, with their intricate designs and symbolic decorations, could be seen as monuments to the glory of Christ's reign. Moreover, the idea that the millennium was a time of peace and righteousness might be reconciled with the relative stability and order of the medieval period, despite the challenges of war and disease. This theory also raises questions about the true nature of the so-called Dark Ages, suggesting that our modern understanding of this period may be influenced by biases and misconceptions. As Umberto Eco famously remarked in The Name of the Rose, books are not made to be believed, but to be subjected to inquiry. When we consider a book, we mustn't ask ourselves what it says, but what it actually means. This perspective invites us to reconsider the historical narrative overall and explore the possibility that the Dark Ages were not as dark as they may have been portrayed. If the Dark Ages were indeed the millennial reign, then Satan's little season could correspond to the modern times of turmoil and upheaval that we are currently living in. Are we truly living in enlightened times? I'll leave that up to you, the viewer, to answer that question for yourself. If this preterist perspective regarding the millennium is in fact true, and the so-called Dark Ages were actually the age of Christ, this would offer a new perspective on the history of the church, reinterpreting the events of the past in light of a biblical prophecy. In exploring these various interpretations of the millennial reign and Satan's little season, it becomes clear that there is no single answer to the questions they raise. Each perspective offers its own insights and challenges, reflecting the complexity and mystery of biblical prophecy. The theory that the Dark Ages were actually the millennial reign remains a fascinating and plausible idea in my opinion. The architectural and cultural achievements of the medieval period, combined with the symbolic elements embedded into Old World stonework, suggest that there may indeed be more to this theory than meets the eye. In the end, the question of when and how the millennium will occur, or whether it has occurred already, remains open to interpretation. What is certain is that these discussions continue to captivate the minds of theologians, historians, and believers, inviting us to explore the deeper meanings of our shared spiritual heritage. Whether we are living in the midst of Satan's little season, awaiting the return of Christ in the age of Aquarius, or contemplating the mysteries of the past, one thing is clear. The story of the millennium and its significance in human history is far from over, and as we seek to understand it, we may also discover that the answers lie not only in the pages of Scripture, but also in the stones and symbols that have stood the test of time. That's all for today. Make sure to like and subscribe for more. Have a great day, everyone, and God bless.